Okay, good morning once again. So, this is the second installment of our monthly coaching session, and we have the first one as part of the membership program. And I believe some of you are already on the platform, either active or inactive. Please do go through the materials because we do upload them, and we will try to do that regularly. Originally, we were fixing some tech issues, so still fixing actually. We have Shan, our community manager, joining us today. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to her via email or over here in the Zoom chat. Can you type down in the chat for me, what do you hope to take away today? Because I'm pretty sure you came here with a specific agenda in mind, or you're just here to open your eyes and learn a little bit. That's fine as well. Or since it's quite a cozy group, we can unmute ourselves, whichever you prefer. So what do you hope to take away today?
Okay, maybe I start first.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Ming Kong.
Yeah. For today, I wanted to know how or what ideas can I get to redo that program that I sent to you.
So that's very
Um,
specific.
yeah, it's a very specific takeaway. That program is currently is a list of it's a table with a lot of data information inside there, and feedback is very difficult to read. Although to me, very simple. I just go by rows lah. But no, to others it's very difficult to read. So I just want to find out is how
Mm,
else can I do this better?
right. I'll ask you more questions later on when we do the demo, but
Sure.
we're looking at how to turn something really dull, which tables usually quite dull, into something that is a more visually captivating, all right, and digestible.
Yeah.
So, Kara, thanks a lot, Ming Kong. Kara said that want to enhance visual presentation. Definitely will learn tips, but it's quite broad, your request. So if there's anything specific in terms of like use of colors, or like Ming Kong must design a table, or last session we talk about specific ways to redesign timeline, which I believe many of you have to create timelines for your work. Yeah, so those are more specific and challenging that you don't usually get on online resources. All right, and then Dawn said
Yeah.
how to
And actually, I
improve.
think what you started
Mhm.
out with, sorry, I thought I just, at least if my camera isn't working, the least I can do is to unmute
Sure.
myself. Yeah, I think what you mentioned earlier about using animations, that's quite new to me because in corporate life, right, and now even into education, yeah, and especially in corporate, we've always been discouraged for using animations, especially when we are presenting to the board or the C-suites. So I thought, if there are some good tips on animations, just to get it a little more um appealing. I actually would love to learn that as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
I actually personally will also discourage animation unless it serves a purpose in clarifying the message. So your bot is not wrong. And
Okay,
yeah, I will share a little bit about functional animation later. In fact, some of them are also in the online course, and then questions we can take it along the way. All right.
got it. Thank
And
you.
thanks a lot, Kara. And Don mentioned how to improve engagement with audience when I present. This is more specific to delivery skills. We can cover that as well. I'm pretty sure we have time today because it's a cozy group. Cool. Anything else we can ask along the way? And I'm gonna share a different screen right now. Today my computer is a little bit buggy. I'm not so sure. Maybe everything is just working too hard. All right. So we have a slide, and I've made many variation. Oops, sorry, one moment. I've made many multiple variations of the slide, and as you can see over here, this is a very technical table. In fact, I have a question, Kong. Is this meant for reading, or are you going to present it?
Actually, I use it for both.
Okay. Then that's a little bit tricky because we have to keep in mind whether do you have to spend a lot of time redoing different versions. So personally, I think this is actually quite clear, but I think maybe it's how people would know where to start off first and what are some of the key components. So let's assume that if we're doing this for reading as well as distribution, and it has to be stuck to one page. There are some ways that we can just level up a little bit in terms of visual clarity. So this is one where if you take a look, we use color coding, right? In terms of the three different columns. So just to take note, these are all, I believe, sanitized information, dummy placeholder text. So we have three different columns, right? And very clearly you can see these are competencies. And if people want to, then they can read row by row. Remember, we talk about processing information by snapshot. And then if you want to make it even clearer that, hey, we're going through this as a timeline because you have 1 to 3 months, 4 to 9 months, very simple arrows could make a difference. Yeah, so this is just a way to level up. And then very small other difference is I do notice this small little detail. Originally, it is at the start, which I feel is quite buried because it's also the same color. So I encourage to put it at the end. And if you want, you can also put this the same color as well. So it's easy for people to capture, which exactly is the one that is LMS module. This is a way. The second way is animated. So here it is to separate some of this content into a few pieces so that it doesn't appear all at once. And this is where functional animation comes into the picture. I'm just going to show you how it works. It looks still rather dull, but the thing is now we're showing 1 to 3 months, 2 competencies at a time. And then when I click next, it's gonna have this effect like, you see on a website, because slides are static, right? So want to know how to do this? Actually, it's very, very simple. Now the presentation has this transition tool called Morph. Basically, any object that is in your previous slide that appears in the next slide, if you change the position a little bit, it would help you do what you call like the move, as though it's seamless. So how does this work? A little bit technical, so you do have to spend a little bit of time to figure out the mechanics behind it. So first, we want this thing to scroll behind, correct? So what we need to do is to insert this white shape. Otherwise, when you scroll behind, it's gonna appear. All right, so create a white shape, put it at the back. And this also means that I have to break the tables apart. So we have 1 column, 2 column. And if you want the 4 to 9 months in the same table, you can as well. Simply put another shape over here. And if I zoom out, you would be able to see this is actually elongated. So I want to copy this table and paste it here. It has to be exactly the same. And then I want to shift this part to this part. So immediately it would help you to make the move already. If I click morph, it looks like that. So it's actually very simple. So this is what we call functional animation, not the typewriter kind, but something that helps people process. However, there is a limitation, which is why you have to be familiar with the tools and the features to know what works best. The limitation is that if you notice earlier on here, we have icons as well as the little arrows, right? The downside of PowerPoint is you cannot group objects with a table. So if I press Ctrl G, I can't group them, which means if I were to do the animation with these icons, yeah, and you would see that it's not as seamless. I'll show you again. You see the icons will fade away at the background rather than move along with the table. So it's it's a little bit limiting. Hence, if you need to, this is the only thing you can do, or you can color code as well. Then there's another step up that you can consider, because usually when it comes to table, fonts would really make a difference, or in terms of colors. But this one, I think if it's corporate, you have to stick to your brand guidelines, so there is no choice. So here I would recommend, if you're thinking about how to make this transition of process look visually captivating, or rather the colors are not jarring and clashing one another, you can go to Color Adobe to download a color palette. So typically, let me just show you one example. Color Adobe. Okay, I'll put this in the chat as well. So Color Adobe, I believe many of you know of this in the course, but if you do not, there are multiple things you can consider, like trends. Currently, we have different types of design trends, and you would see that the trend now, especially in commercial space, right, those B2C space, it's very popping. So the colors are very contrasting. You have bright red, bright yellow, etc. But if you don't want that for your presentation, you can click explore, and these are usually colors that are what I call monochromatic, or they are analogous. A quick recap: analogous colors basically means that if you were to go to this color wheel, the color is side by side. So all of these are analogous colors. So when you look at them, it's very nice. It's like looking at the sky, different shades of same color or slightly different color tone that complements or is coherent. So that's how you want to apply. And how do you download this thing on the left? Actually, you can just go to explore, and then again, if I use this, right, I can download as JPEG. And if you don't already know, you can do this color picker tool. So let's say if I want to change this into a different color, you should see this picker tool, and then I can just click on any color on the screen, and ta-da, there your color changed. So this one you have to uh, change also. So two separate, two separate elements. All right. So that's just very quickly, how do you change a dial table into something that it's more visually clear? So I just want to seek clarification and also validation from Ming Kong. Based on whatever I've shown you right now, which one do you think is going to help your situation?
I think the color helps to maybe separate out the three columns, the three functional areas.
Cool.
But might not able to address the feedback that is still too complicated because it's still table form.
So you're looking at designing it in other forms.
I don't know. I was trying to find out, are there other ways to redesign this instead of using a table? Yeah.
We can actually, however, it might mean that you need to split this slide into a few. And I'm wondering whether that's okay, because I know
No.
some people, that's not okay.
No.
Okay, another way, I wanted to do this, but I actually wouldn't recommend because it takes a lot of time. And I feel like we should do anything that takes less time, is rather than having this in a drop down bullet point, you might want to have this in columns instead. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Let's say over here, right? I can split this into three different, one moment, too many screens, three different columns. All right. So leading others, customer service, all of this is in one individual column. And then if you want, you can even put icons, but I think it might be a little bit too crowded. Another way is if you want to, you can color code these different levels of target audience as well. Yeah. The thing is, you're going to present this, right? So when is it during your presentation, people are not so sure what to look at first?
I think it was a general comment that it's just too much information. But then again, all these are essential information, right? You cannot just leave out certain things. So I'm not sure about that comment. But I think most of them are saying that it's that perhaps it's difficult to read.
Okay. So if you're doing this in a facilitated setting, then I think you have more room to play around, because typically we want to introduce people in terms of building blocks, and people are guided, right? So another trick, again, using animation, what I would recommend is simply just introducing them the pieces one by one. And this actually works for charts as well. So instead of just going through, okay, what this is about, you want to say, okay, on this table, we can see that there are target audiences of different job grades, and we have competencies or modules for each of them. And these are the three key competencies: leadership, core policies, and business acumen across 9 months. And first, let us take a look at, then you can decide whether you want to showcase this entire thing one column at a time. You can use a very simple, what I call a build out animation over here. So you have like exit effect, right? Then you fade away, leading business. Then you go through. Then second column, then a third column, then you show everything. I think that would actually do the job, because now I don't think it's so much the visual effect, like you have to put in image in order to clarify the message, but it's really people are just bombarded with everything and they feel very overwhelmed. They don't even want to process it at the start. But if you introduce them bit by bit, I think it should do the work. What are your thoughts?
Okay, probably that will help in the presentation mode to introduce parts by parts. But by the way, I just clarify this is a simplified one. I've actually the actual program contains much more modules and much more bullets in each of this block. That's why people are saying it's too cluttered and too complicated. But never mind, I'll take this insight share in this session and then think about it.
Yeah.
Can I ask, just now you mentioned about, is the problem for the reader is where to start? Because it's too much information. Can I just tap on your thoughts? What's your thoughts about that? How to make it easier for people to know where to start reading?
Okay. You want to make sure that your keywords or the key object is either big in size or striking in color. Because that's where our eyes are usually drawn to. So we read from left to right, top down.
Colors, okay, and font size, okay.
Yeah, and then the layout would matter a lot as well, whether you're using column or bullet points. Usually bullet points don't work very well.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
never mind. You do that.
I actually have a follow-up question on what you just said. So you mentioned that there's a lot of information, right? And you have to put them in one page. Who is the one determining that it has to be a single page?
I think it comes that if there are multiple pages to this program, people got no patience to go through so many pages. They will rather see everything at one go and zoom in to whatever they need to see. Okay, so we have two different types of audience, right? Same as everybody. One is the management one who want to take one look. Okay, this is all my things my guys need to do. And then there's another group, which is a specific group. Say, hey, I just want to zoom in on what's relevant to me. So I have two groups of people that I need to cater. The common to both is that they don't have time to go through so many slides. They just prefer one slide, settle everything. Type.
Right, understand. Yeah. So if time is the main purpose, then we have to challenge the assumption that if you put everything on one page, it would take less time for them to process. But if you're saying that they need to print out this one page, like some events you print out, then that's your poster or that's somewhere, then I think functionally it has to all be one page so that people can use it as a directory. So I would actually recommend all of you to experiment with this, especially when you meet with pushback and suggestions from your audience, right? Oh, everything has to be one page, but it has to be better. Then ask them which one would work for them. Is it about time? Or is it about something else like functionality? Because if we want to go with your purpose, right, I would even recommend you to break this down into 3 separate slides. So you have one target audience at a time. So senior leadership, what are the modules? Then you have more space to put in your visuals. Then you can break free from the table format. Yeah, currently we have no space to even put in any graphic. It would add to the clutter, then clarify. So that's the thought process. Perhaps you try this and you experiment with your team members, see what they say. Okay. I can send you the slides if you want to.
Yes, please. That would be very helpful. Can I ask one last question?
Sure.
In your mind, if we don't want to use a table, I'm still stick to one page still. If I don't use a table, is there other format that I could use? Pie chart or
unfortunately, no, because table is actually very good to help us organize things according to similarities and categories. Okay, so if you recall, there are 4 different things. Maybe let me just share my screen again and I'll write it down. So when you take a look at other formats or even diagrams, it is in this case where it fits under these four categories. So the very first one is you are making a comparison. Okay. So comparison table works, or you have, your charts, your your bar chart actually, or even timeline. And then we have composition. This is parts of a whole. So if you're saying you want to use pie chart for this, it wouldn't make sense unless you're saying, okay, X% of management would attend this training, or maybe core policy. We're going to target more of this group and less of that group. But that's not the key message. And the other one is more of relationship. So you talk about like correlation, you have like the combo chart, and then we have distribution. All right. So COVID clusters, that's distribution. So if you were to look at your key message and see what exactly am I trying to do, most of the time, if you're not dealing with data, it is comparison. So you have layouts like half and half, or I can show you we're actually in the midst of creating this diagram template, editable diagrams template. Maybe you can get some of your thoughts as well. And here we go. So we have like process, or we have, like parts of a whole. We have the key. This is also parts of a whole, something like that. This might work if you're talking about, oh, we have a program and people will go through this a little bit at the start, and then more in the middle, and then less towards the end. Then it would fit your key message. Otherwise, yeah, I would say table works the best. Yeah. This one we use also for some of our slides in terms of funneling people. You have awareness program, then 100 people attend this awareness course. And then you funnel into more specific programs, workshop, and then everyone diverge. And then towards the end, you have like coaching or something like that. So yeah, do let me know maybe in the membership course as well. If you have any specific diagrams that you want us to design, turn it into a template, then we can send it to everybody so that it's useful. Yeah,
Okay,
so
can.
table.
Thank you very much, Kaixin.
No problem. Thanks for using your example. Any questions from the rest in terms of what has just been covered? Otherwise, I'll move into another example. Okay. The other one has to do with diagrams. Okay, so over here. So how do you turn something like this into something more meaningful? Again, when we look at diagrams, it's very interesting because it's trying to tell a message. So immediately at first glance, you can already see, even though it's very complicated, that all of this belongs to complex systems. And if you look closer, you would also realize that there are two categories, right? Self-organization over time, emergence over scale. However, it's unappealing, number one, because of perhaps the color choice. And number two, there are certain, things like bevel, gradient, etc. So everything just looks outdated. But in terms of the format and the layout, it works. So how can we make this slightly better would be this. You just color code them, especially if in your presentation, you're going to zoom into individual ones. So I didn't do it for every single circle, but already you can see that this is nice. And this follows the color wheel. And how do we segregate the two categories? We have it at the side. And you can even put in some of your, elaboration on the side as well. Okay. Now, this is again where the animation comes in handy. So from here, if I want to zoom into game theory, then I have my another slide. Okay. This is taken from the slide before. So I have to copy and paste exactly, change the color and, change the circle. And then I have all of these words also from here, but I increase the font size. So immediately when I click morph, this is what happens. So this is what we call functional animation. And it really allows your reader to know how to connect the slide element slide by slide. So this is very helpful. In fact, in the past, there's this software called Prezi, now not so popular, but it's a similar concept where you're guiding people, connecting the dots for them. Yeah. And then I have also gone through online. We have other diagrams that I thought was quite interesting as well in terms of how to select. So we have this like composition, parts of a whole, right? Everything here belongs to low complexity, and then you have a few different parts with a few different layers. So you always want to think in terms of what exactly is the key message, and then what is the sub message. And then you can use the 4 quadrant earlier on to guide you. Or if you're talking about relationships, then this is where you have lines connecting dots in order to symbolize how everything is interconnected and related. But then if you're talking about layers, again, composition, then this is what we have. This is slightly interesting in terms of design, or like this. This is more the general style or like the shape. Yeah. So I think with enough practice, you would be able, enough practice and exposure, you would be able to see what are some other alternative. And I'm a strong advocate of going to Pinterest to find visual samples. So just type like table, how to redesign table, or white papers. Actually, they have great, well-designed tables as well. All right. So those are some tips for animation. Kara, I'm curious, what are your thoughts about this, since it's something new to you that you're hoping to explore?
Well, I thought the mouth transition was quite nice. I think that could be really quite useful. And I also like what you shared earlier, not about diagrams and using different visual shapes and forms to represent the message. I think that's something that I probably don't think enough of it. I don't think it use that. So we tend to just go to the templates in PowerPoint to do it. But I think there can be more ways. I just need to get a bit more effort. But thanks for sharing that.
No problem. Yeah, I would recommend, if you know that there is a layout that you currently don't have, but you have to design anyway, turn it into your own toolkit so that you don't always have to create new ones. Yeah. Because sometimes we're too limited by our template. I know some of the companies have very extensive templates, which is great, but some is just like header and footer with the logo at the bottom. Then it's not very useful. Cool. How about Dawn? Any questions? I know you submitted something last session, but didn't get to join. Do you have you looked through the recording?
No, actually, Kai-Sing, I'm having some trouble looking at the previous recording.
Oh, how come?
Yeah, so
Technical
I
issue,
don't
is
know.
it?
I think might be my company's laptop is blocking. I'm not sure the firewall, but I haven't had time to use my home laptop to explore. Because on the phone, I couldn't. On my handphone, I couldn't. It's kind of small on the handphone. So I will. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're not the only one. So it's very unfortunate. We are troubleshooting, and Shan is helping us out over here.
Okay, I'll try again from my home computer and see if I can log into the previous coaching session. Yeah, but this one has been interesting. I think like what you said, shared with Ming Kong, I think it's quite common that we need to put things all in one slide. But I think it's good to push back to see that, is it necessary? Because cluttering all in one slide just doesn't make sense to me. It should be split into several slides. I think it will look better and it will be clearer. And then for someone who, depending on what's relevant to you, you only refer to which slide, and the other slides you kind of like don't have to pay so much attention. So I think it makes sense to split into 3 slides and put everything in one slide and just overwhelm the person and turns the person off. Will be like, I don't even want to look at that slide.
Yeah, so it backfires. Yeah, we also talk in the course about headlines. How do you use headline with keywords so that people immediately know, this is the slide that relates to me, and just look at that, deep dive. The rest they can just skim through. So headline would be helpful in that sense also. Cool. So Dawn, you mentioned something about engagement. Could you elaborate a little bit? We can have some time to cover that.
In the past, when you helped me with my deck, and I use it for new hires, basically, when I introduce the ways of working for my department. But sometimes people just nod and like, yeah, okay, they understand. But I'm not very sure they understand. Like I'm just wondering what is the best way to get a bit more feedback, but yet not let it be a test or make it seem like, I am asking too many questions or checking to see, like I'm because I know about portfolio, what I'm doing very well, right? But at the end of the day, I just want to make sure I get my message across. They understand this department, and but yeah, I'm not sure. Sometimes, they don't turn on their camera, they're not very engaged. I'm not very sure.
Virtual setting.
Yeah, and it's a virtual setting. So what is the best way to engage and make sure that the audience that I'm reaching out to is really understanding what, and sometimes also there are different nationalities. They're not all, yes.
Okay, and okay, so we have a couple of things. The main one is how do you ensure that they're on the same page, they're following when there's no feedback received. And then I think we talk about nationality. We also talk about, I think it's a virtual setting, right? And you don't want to make it into a test. What I personally found very helpful is to always ask validation questions. So there are different questions with different purpose. If your purpose is to align or to validate, then you can ask a closed-ended question. Like, what I've covered so far, are you clear? If yes, type this word in the chat, like Roger or Crystal, or I don't know, some weird name. Maybe you have your own organization lingo. And you can also ask a little bit open-ended, but not so much of a quiz, to say, what so far have I shared that resonated most with you? So you can see the amount of responses in the chat. So chat, it's very helpful, especially people don't turn on the camera. You can see the amount of responses. And if there's only like one or two, when your class or your meeting has like 20 over people, then you know clearly some people are, away. And even before you get into that, you have to set the tone at the very beginning. So like when you begin, don't just jump into introducing yourself. You want to already start using the chat function and say, today is going to be very interactive. Are you, excited about this? Or if you're here, you can type good morning. So you get them to warm up rather than, jumping straight into it. Then they're like already gone away from keyboard. Yeah. And Ming I'll get into that later. And I do know some people towards the end, or they would kind of punctuate their entire presentation with a little bit of quiz. If you don't want that, that's fine. But if the reason not wanting quiz is because it feels a little bit too formal or like a test, then you can consider a gamified version. So we have things like Kahoot or Slido, where, yeah, it's just very easy. You have leaderboards and maybe you want to give something away. Since they are new hires, you can make it a little bit more exciting, I suppose. Yeah. And then to the question about different nationality, I'm not so sure whether there is a distinct group, because I know some, maybe a big group from Hong Kong or big group from China or from Vietnam, etc. Do you know? Okay, so this is a Zoom presentation hack. Do you know that there is this thing called the, hang on, let me share my entire screen so you can see the subtitles. So when you go to slideshow, right, you can actually change your subtitle language. So if I have it here, then I can put this. And when I go to presentation mode, you would see at the bottom, it will transcribe whatever I say into Chinese. So in the past, I would have to type it out on the slide, which clutters it even more. But this is fairly accurate, I would say. Yeah. 准确的, yes, correct. So this is another way that you can help to engage if you're not very familiar with the language.
It is
And then-
transcribing your voice as well, Kai-Sing, what you're saying.
Yes, real time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for
I show
sharing.
again,
That's very
demo,
interesting.
to show the power of this. So I can say hi. Will take a while. Okay. This is real time. A bit not so accurate. 是的. We are doing this in real time. So you have to put a little bit of disclaimer. I think it's really powerful what Microsoft is doing right now, powered by AI, and you can leverage this.
Okay, can you show me again where do you find this subtitle settings?
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't
No
catch that
problem.
earlier.
Hang on, so you go to slideshow.
Slideshow.
If you're using this version, I think 2016 onwards, it should be updated already. Then there is a subtitle setting. So you can insert what is your spoken language. So I believe you mainly speak
English.
in English. Yeah. And then subtitle language, you can change so many. I haven't tried
Oh.
others. So far, only Chinese. So you can ask your colleagues like how accurate. I got Korean, Vietnamese, and stuff like that. All right. Yeah.
Well,
Then
this will be useful for my Chinese colleagues. Yeah, I think some of them may not grasp what I'm saying if I speak too fast.
right.
Yeah, and it's not very nice because I may have some Indonesian and some other nationalities, and if I start speaking like translating it at the same time, it's
Oh
isn't
yeah,
very
that's
polite, I think.
true. Yeah, and it will take up a lot of time, and it gets very dull also, very hard to follow.
Yeah.
So
So this
this
is
in
not
real
bad.
time, yeah,
Maybe I
works.
can try.
But you cannot cater it to everyone lah. So maybe to the majority of population who is predominantly speaking that language. Yeah. So this is one. Actually, there's another thing about visual presentation, since we're on it as well, is usually when we present in slideshow, say I click on this slideshow, right? I can't see my speaker notes.
Yes.
So it's unlike when you do it offline, then you have the different display setting. So what you can consider doing is, instead of showing like the normal view or like slideshow view, you can actually click on reading view. So what this does is, now this is a window on its own. And when I share my screen on Zoom or any other platform, I can have my notes on the side, maybe duplicate the software, either the speaker notes, or it can be a Word document, anything. But this allows me to toggle between like Spotify, or if I want to do a web demo, or when people are doing their, group discussion, I can go and multitask, address some emails, things like that. So when you click on this, share screen to just show this display rather than a full desktop, then it would work wonders very much. The only downside of this for PowerPoint versus Keynote is that you can still see the title of the presentation file. You can't do away with that. If you're using Keynote, it is quite similar function whereby I can also show it to you. Just not so sure any of you use Keynote, but say if you do, then this is how the thing would work. When you click on, 1 second, yeah, like in window. So when you click play, it's in window instead. So when I click like that, yeah, then you can see this, yeah, my display on the side. So this is good for Keynote, rather than, I mean, it's better on Keynote than PowerPoint, because you have your speaker notes over here that you can see, and you can even see what the next slide is, which I thought was great. But when you share screen, they only can see this thing. Yeah. So there's just a little hack that you can consider trying for a better virtual experience. Because I know some presenters, they would show the screen, then got the slide sorted at the side. And yeah, it looks really cluttered, the desktop. Yeah. So that's something to consider for engagement. So I wanted to check in with you. How much have I addressed your question, Dawn, in terms of getting people's feedback?
That helps a lot. I mean, I think I will explore definitely the subtitles and maybe Kahoot or Slido. I know, yeah, some of my colleagues do use it already. Yeah, and I already use the chat function. So at the start, I get them to introduce themselves, and I make sure it's very open, that they can ask any questions at any time. They can stop me. So it's already okay, but I just want to improve further, basically, to make sure that they really understand. But I do feel it's more the language sometimes. So and then it's a mixed group, so it's a bit challenging.
Understand. What I would encourage you to do is also, it's a best practice to break apart your presentation into 10 minutes block. So you have the start engagement, which is great, but don't wait till the end to ask another question. Try to have a 10 minutes, chime in, or you can change the mode a little bit. Sometimes you will be very surprised, especially on Zoom, right? If you keep switching, sometimes you share screen, sometimes you show your face, etc. When you start sharing screen, it would occupy the entire screen of theirs. So they have no choice but to know that something is going on if they're multitasking. Yeah. No problem. Thanks a lot, Ming Kwong, for joining us, and for letting us use your sample. I'll send you the slides. Is it okay if I upload it on the portal so that everyone can
Yeah, this is fine. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Okay. Any other, feedback or questions that you would like to ask today? Okay. Then I have questions for both of you. So this is something very new, the membership, and Shannon and myself are still trying to figure out the firewall thing. It's a really big hurdle. Beyond that, what would you like to see in the portal to really aid your work? And besides this monthly group coaching session, what would you think would be helpful?
I think it will be, for me at least, Kai Xing, it will be more targeted, like Ming Kong sharing, his current issue and what he needs to resolve for his presentation. And also for me, like after I presented, I feel that in what area I can improve. It's more targeted for me than it being too general. Because if it's something very general, sometimes it may not be useful.
Right, understand. So I would assume the monthly group coaching would be the most relevant to you. Okay,
Yes.
got it. Would you be comfortable, say, posting your questions and getting direct feedback? Or I mean, I'm just thinking of the mode in terms of reaching the end outcome.
I think I'm comfortable posting.
Okay, yeah, that's something you can consider doing if you can't make it for the session. How about
Okay.
Kara?
Okay, to be honest, this is my first time attending. I've got a few emails in the mail sign up, but couldn't make it previously. So I'm still trying to understand, but this has been helpful. I think I think the guide that the gentleman shared, I thought that was quite useful for me to understand, how we can apply different techniques. So probably just have to explore a bit more now. Yeah,
Sure,
because
no
it's
problem.
about I guess for me it's about finding out what I don't know.
Right.
And how things can be done in different ways. So I think it's really about, getting a new perspective on how we can continuously improve our presentations.
So exposure is what you're looking
So
for.
yeah, very much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's great. Are you currently already on the online portal?
I think so. I've attended the high stock presentation, advanced presentation course previously. I think that's how my email got into the database. I haven't quite explored it much though. So which is why it's quite new to me now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, if you don't mind, do you mind staying back for a while for us just to navigate you so that you can get the best benefit from the course? Because I know a lot
Okay.
of times, yeah, it's a little bit confusing for some.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure. I mean, for sure,
if
will be good. Thank you so much.
yeah, no problem. I believe this is the end of our coaching. So thank you very much for joining, and do keep your questions coming, and I'll try my best to answer them.